Hello, I'm Jonathan I, Emperor of Austenasia, and this is an interview for the Micronation's YouTube channel. Austenasia was founded on Saturday the 20th of September 2008. We have a population of 84, and we are located right across the globe, with many territories and properties having been claimed by Austenasia all over the world. The first Austenasian land claim and our capital city is Rythe, which is my family home, located in South London. That was the original piece of land which was declared independent as Austenasia in 2008. And historically, Austenasia has been located primarily in the British Isles, although in recent years, as I said, we have spread right across the world, and we have a lot of land, especially in North America, and right across the Mediterranean as well. Austenasia really started as a family project. My father and I came across Molossia online and Sealand, and we decided that, well, if others can do it, so can we. So we looked up what makes a nation, a permanent population, a shared culture and history, and decided that really, in a microcosmic way, that could be applied to a family unit. So we declared our family home independent. A few months later, some friends of the family decided to join as well, and ever since we have steadily expanded, with more people across the world joining. My father was the country's first emperor, Terry I. After a couple of years, he decided that he no longer wanted to have to run the country, so he abdicated in February 2010 and was replaced with a school friend of mine, Esmond III. This caused a brief civil war, which primarily consisted of various nations online who had nothing to do with it, picking sides and declaring war. Eventually, this was actually decided by a referendum. The population of the empire held a vote on who they wanted to be monarch, and they decided that Esmond should stay as emperor. He reigned for the better part of a year until he was replaced by Declan I, who was a monarch of another micronation, Wilkesland, who had gained influence over Austenasia and the surrounding area. He reigned until January 2013, until he abdicated and I took the throne as son of Terry I. When my father Terry I was emperor, the monarchy was primarily constitutional, primarily ceremonial. The monarch didn't really do much except to oversee the Prime Minister's administration, in a very similar way to the United Kingdom at present. However, under the reigns of Esmond III and Declan I, monarchy took on far more political prominence, far more power, and by the time I took the throne, monarchy had really become the driving force behind the nation, of primary executive and legislative power. We do have an elected Prime Minister, but the two, the head of state and the head of the government, really do work together on most things and act as a check and balance for the other. Austenasia doesn't really have an economy. We don't have a manufacturing sector. Most of the income of the nation comes through people going out to work in their neighbouring countries and then spending that money in those neighbouring countries to buy food, which is then brought back to their little land claims. So in that respect, no, Austenasia doesn't have an economy. Our income and exports are really all based in the neighbouring macronations, and we're not like those nations who claim to have a GDP based on a rather dubious calculations of income earned in another country. So we would just be quite honest and say, no, Austenasia doesn't have an economy. We have had some initiatives in the past, such as minting and selling coins for a small profit. We've done the same with postcards, but these are mainly tourist attractions and souvenirs, but they don't fund the nation to any great extent. The government gets most of its income from volunteer donations and through the ministers themselves funding their own projects and initiatives. As mentioned, Austenasia has had a civil war. We were also in a state of war in the end of 2010, but both of these occasions we were at war with neighbouring groups, people we could actually get to, people who could, in theory, be fought physically. We have never gone into the idea of declaring war on some nation, the other end of the earth, across an ocean or two, because that is ridiculous, and we would far rather solve things with diplomacy, with discussion and negotiation. The Civil War and the later war of that year, the War over Orly, they were both events which we do not look back on with any pride. They were dark moments in our history when we were quite immature. We stand by our view that they were legitimate conflicts. The situations had got to such a point where a formal declaration of war was in some respects warranted. But again, these were local conflicts with the people who decided to fight in them actually knew each other in person. And so no, Austenasia does not commend or encourage what most people would usually think of as micronational wars. We would define a micronation as an actual nation which has declared independence but is too small to be taken seriously, and that's really it. we believe a true micronation needs to actually claim sovereignty, needs to actually claim independence in some meaningful sense. Otherwise, it's just really roleplay. There is a fine line to be drawn in some cases between what is roleplay, what is world building, what is micronationalism. But by most accounts, in most cases, an actual micronation needs to be more than just a political role-playing game. It needs to actually have a sense of independence, even if that is tongue-in-cheek, even if that is nominal. But it needs to actually officially consider itself independent, and I think that's what really divides a micronation from a simulationist world-building game. Personally, I can be said to have got into micronationalism as early as 2002, when I was part of various playground-based kingdoms and groups which did organise themselves in a military structure with a king and a leader. We didn't consider them micronations, we didn't call them micronations, but I think in several playgrounds across the world, people do make their own little kingdoms and their own little groups, and to some extent they can be considered some sort of proto-micronation. I was part of that playground-based group from 2002 until 2006. The group itself lasted until 2007, and then the following year Austenasian was founded and has lasted ever since. So in that respect, Carshalton, the local area, has really had a micronational presence since 1995, when the precursor to my own playground nation was founded. Austenasia is a Christian micronation which sees itself as a successor to the Roman Empire. This culture has developed steadily over several years. It started off really as a ideological justification for claiming the title of emperor rather than that of king, and has since really developed into our own unique worldview based primarily on that of the medieval Roman Empire, based on that of the Holy Roman Empire, and we've come into alliances with different other empires across the world who share a similar worldview. Austenasia is also an officially Christian nation. We do see ourselves in many senses as a revived microcosm of the Christian Roman Empire of the Middle Ages. We celebrate Christian feast days as public holidays, we use Christian symbols in our national symbols, coat of arms for example, but we do have freedom of religion, we have freedom of thought, freedom of worship. We don't in any way enforce Christianity on our population. The majority of our population is Christian, about 55%, although there is a significant non-religious minority, and we also have a significant Muslim and Hindu minorities as well. Primarily, Austenasia stands for the preservation and promotion of what we would consider Roman culture, as well as for a mutual respect amongst all micronationalists for the various different worldviews and beliefs we all hold in such a diverse community.